Hey, I have a question for you. How can a multimedia franchise that is based upon the biggest superhero IP in the world fail? How a talented dev team, using tried and true game mechanics, can make a bad game, and not just a bad game, a game that disappoints everyone. This is the story of Marvel Midnight Suns, and to talk about that game we need to turn back the time and look back at one of my favorite games of all time, XCOM. So, join me, let's talk about XCOM and Marvel Midnight Suns. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know a lot about the old XCOM games, because I don't. While I have loved strategy and turn-based strategy games for all my 25 plus years of gaming, the first XCOM I played was the 2012 reboot, XCOM Enemy Unknown and expansion Enemy Within. Oh boy, the game is amazing. I love it. I love the strategy and tactics aspects of it. I love the way the game's narrative evolves. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I love the puzzle-like strategy, the narrative and stakes that arise from my own attachment to my team, and the large amount of possibility for self-imposed challenges. I love almost everything about that game. Well, except maybe 90% misses. But what is XCOM, you might ask? Well, it is a long-living but often neglected turn-based game franchise. The first game was originally conceived by a small British video game developer company, Mythos Games, led by Julian Gollop, as a sequel to their 1988 science fiction tactical game Laser Squad. I don't know anything about Laser Squad, but XCOM was inspired by old British TV series called UFO, Bob Lazar's writings about reverse engineering alien tech, and a bunch of other pop culture projects. It was published in 1994 and has been mentioned as one of the best PC games of all time. Why? Because it is, probably. The game was released to very positive reviews and commercial success, selling more than 600,000 units on the PC DOS platform, and over a million counting ports and re-releases together with the sequel. It was big, especially for that time. Half of the game's net sales were in United States, a rarity for a European title at the time. Really. There was American market, Japanese market, and European market. And the game's creator Gollop has attributed the game's success in North America to its title, XCOM, as the television series The X-Files had premiered a year earlier, and there was this whole UFO fever.
Probing gyro, pyro, levitating ecoplasm, alien antimatter story, and I'm gonna take out my gun and shoot somebody.
So, yeah, overall, beloved game, got some sequels, and then fell off for some years. And that was until 2012. Well, actually 2008, when work on the game began. They have said that the first version of the game was basically a remake of the original, but throughout the development the game evolved and changed. And for one, I am glad it did. I played a bit of the original and I must say, it's cool, but it's one of those you had to be there games. You know, a game that you had to play around that time to fully appreciate it now. One thing that I think perfectly describes the whole feel and the gameplay comes out of the art direction. They, the creators of the game, have said that the aim was to have the characters resemble action figures. And this makes so much sense, because when playing the game, it feels like being a kid and moving and placing action figures on the kitchen table and imagining them shooting and fighting aliens. But more about that in a second. The gameplay is divided into base building resource management part and the turn-based strategy combat part. And I think the combat part perfectly mixes the setup and combat phases. You seamlessly move from one to the other. As you explore the map with your team, you find threats and then enter the combat to defeat them. Just like action figure fights on the kitchen table, it feels so perfectly. That metaphor about action figures is so right for this situation, because you place your units, then you move them around, and then when the combat starts you try to place them in the perfect locations to take out enemies. It's very good. You see, the combat has this puzzle-like quality to it. Like, you have all of these moving pieces, and almost always there is the perfect combination that creates the best outcome. By that I mean your guys do not get injured or killed, but you kill most of the enemy. But if you have not played this game many times, you might not see it the first time playing it. And I absolutely love that. I love that puzzle quality to this game, because this is a hard game. It punishes mistakes and demands you to be very smart and careful about where and how you place your characters when you reload and when you use special abilities and so on and so forth. But also it's hard because of this. The freaking RNG 90% missed shots. Oh my god, that has become a meme, and rightly so. Nothing is more annoying than standing next to an enemy with my guy pointing a shotgun right into his face, having 90% or 95% chance to hit and missing. It is so annoying. That is not that great. Another thing that can be a bit annoying sometimes is the management side of the game, because on higher difficulties it is very easy to get trapped into the spiral of losing regions. That means you are losing resources and the game becomes harder and harder. The second game actually handled this part way better. But overall, I like the simple management side of the game, as it does not take away from the combat. That is the heart of this game, the combat. And of course there is the story aspect, but it is kind of a basic. Aliens attack, we kill aliens and use their tech to kill them more efficiently. Simple. There is very little more there. But a really cool thing about the story is that you make your own stories playing the game. Again, the action figure analogy. I create the backstories for my characters in my head. I notice the characters who miss more often. I notice characters who miss less often. I get proud when my sniper takes out 4 characters in a row. And that is all happening in my head. I get sad when they die. And not just because it actually can mess up your game, because like I said, this game is hard. But also because I am attached to my team and the characters never speak. They have very little personality, but it works here. You can see the child playing with action figures coming through this game from every aspect of it, and it is wonderful. So yeah, this is XCOM, one of the greatest games ever made. Seriously, probably in my top 10 or at least top 20 best games I have ever played. I love it. I hope they will make more soon. You might ask, how Midnight Suns relate to XCOM? Well, for one, it was made by Firaxis, so that would be the most direct relation, and one of the reasons why I had such high hopes for the game. I mean, XCOM, but with Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Blade, Wolverine? Yes, please. Even though I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, I do like a bunch of the movies and I read comics from time to time. And even if I do feel a bit tired of the Marvel properties as such, I would have gobbled up this game if it was good. Come on, how can this not be good?
Nico was planning to throw you a surprise birthday party.
And why do you tell me this?
Unfortunately, somehow they managed to do it. Kinda. And it is not just me saying this. Fireaxis axed the team that made it. Well, not only because of that, but you know, if the game would have been better, it might not have happened. But the game was published to a worldwide meh. No one actively disliked it. I don't actively dislike it. It even got decent reviews, but no one proclaimed it to be the next coming of sliced bread. It was just a big when the game came out. Because, yeah, there are a bunch of reasons. The game is competent, but I think there is one overarching issue. It is made for no one, or for a very specific meeting of 2 or 3 Venn diagrams. To understand that, we need to look at its systems, at its gameplay. So, just like XCOM, it consists of base building, well, more resource gathering and relationship building here part, and the combat part. And the combat consists of our team of 3 heroes plopping down in a small fight arena and using abilities that come to us in randomly drawn card form to defeat waves of enemies. So already you can see that we have lost here the placing of the units and exploring the combat map part of the game, which I loved. And of course the RNG of cards removes the fine-tuning and precise combatness of XCOM. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. In XCOM, the precise use of your abilities, planned out chains of actions, made it feel like my team actually was an elite military unit that is operating like a clockwork. Here, it feels more improvised and kinda sort of it makes sense because the heroes are not like a special military team. They are solo heroes who have come together to fight a big giant baddie, but at the same time it takes something away from the game experience in my opinion. But that's not to say that the combat doesn't offer anything more. There are way more varied abilities for each of the heroes and more abilities to control the battlefield, as you have skills and moves that move enemies around, you can chain some nasty combos, you have specific triggers for your hero abilities and so on and so forth. And once you have learned the game and the right cards have been drawn, it's pretty nice. You can do some really nasty combos. Also, the progression, while I'm not the fan of how the actual upgrades are handled for your cards, it's a mess, but later on it actually has a feeling of your character getting better, your attacks having more specialized ways they influence the battlefield and the enemies, and you have a lot more tools to play around with. So you can chain some really cool things, like it can be fun to take out 3 or 4 guys in a turn without even spending any of your allowed card plays, and that is pretty cool. So while it is not totally dumb and simple, I still think that most XCOM lovers like me felt a bit disappointed by the overall experience, mainly because we can't move around, because that is like a big part of strategy. Imagine if the heroes could actually move around the map, we could position them, use their ranged and melee abilities, like Spider-Man webbing some dudes from the rooftop while Iron Man nukes them from the sky, Strange teleports them next to the Blade who drains their blood for a buff. I just want more tactics and strategy in my turn-based strategy game. And placement of the units exploring the map is a big part of it. So yeah, I would say there is a bit of a disappointment and unfulfilled feeling with the combat. I think they could have done it better. But there is another thing. The game doesn't really want you to actually do so much combat. It feels like it wants you to spend more time in the home base, exploring its secrets, talking with Marvel characters, and collecting stuff for crafting. Of course they have crafting. Why wouldn't they? So while in XCOM combat is the main mode and the base management is just a side thing that needs to be done, here it's way more central. And on one hand it makes sense, they have rights to all of these Marvel characters. And who doesn't want to go on a date with Blade or Miss Marvel? Yes. But again, there's an issue. The relationships, for me, don't feel satisfying. They don't evolve in a way like, let's say, Persona or Mass Effect relationships do. It feels very restricted, of course, because Disney is looking over their shoulder. Heavens forbid the character does something the mouse does not approve. And these characters, they are fully developed. Even if we don't follow the movies, don't read comic books, still, they have so much already personality, so much baggage that it is hard somehow to feel very connected to them. It feels generally empty and does not feel organic. In BioWare games, the game structure, missions, and progression of the story works better to convince us that the other characters who join us on missions are real and that our relationship develops through the hardships.
Shepard.
Grunt?
Shepard.
Rex?
Commander Shepard. Shepard, Shepard, Shepard.
Rex? Grunt?
Shepard.
Here they are a static part. They are in the combat and then they are in the home base, doing their own thing or standing in place, just fulfilling a function of barking out some not super well written dialogue.
I need all the allies I can get on this apocalyptic reality show because I do not want to get voted out of this abbey or off this world.
So yeah, I think in XCOM, as our own internal story evolves and we get closer to our own soldiers, is because, first of all, they can die, so that raises up the stakes. Marvel superheroes, of course, can't die, and if they die, they come back, so, you know, there's one thing of that. But also because they are not established characters and we can make our own personalities for them. But the main question is, do people who want to go fishing with Blade want to play quite long combat missions? And do people who want to experience combat want to spend time collecting crafting resources and trying to guess what gift Captain Marvel would want? You see, I mentioned that Venn diagram. It looks like two different groups of people. So why would they be interested in a game that offers only like 50% or even less of the experience they want? And another aspect, for the Marvel writing and Marvel story enthusiasts, well, the story here is rather mediocre. The enemies are interesting but underutilized, the conversations with our characters are way too long, and the characters talk too much. But they don't say anything interesting. As for our character, the one we control, they are in this awkward phase where they simultaneously are a blank slate for us to project ourselves onto. At the same time, they are a character who is written into the Marvel lore and has to be a Marvel character. But just like with Hogwarts Legacy, it's neither or. It just doesn't work. Our character is stuck somewhere in the middle. I wish they would have decided, like in XCOM, we are us, and everyone is talking, looking at the camera. They are talking with us, but we don't speak ever. Or the other way, where our character is like a real, true Marvel character. Maybe someone from actually comic books, like not a created character. And that was the same issue with Hogwarts Legacy. So here is another circle for the diagram. People who are very, very into Marvel. Do they get something out of this? I don't know.
I do not know what slow is.
That does it.
Once we send your mother back to the pit she crawled out of, I am organizing a ski.
So yeah, XCOM fans disappointed, dating sim fans disappointed, deck builders probably disappointed, Marvel heads mostly disappointed. But there is one final issue that I actually hope in 2023 will die off. The live servicey part of the game. It feels live servicey. Marvel Midnight Suns definitely was planned out and sort of still is a live service game in some way. And they have said from the start that the new characters and missions would be added, and as always with these live service projects, they feel unfinished and empty. Despite having millions of collectibles, having millions of stuff, they feel empty because they are meant to be sort of empty, so the devs can push in more and more and more stuff. Even in the cutscenes, you can see that characters are standing in certain formations, leaving spaces in the room free where other characters, the DLC characters, could be placed. I think so. It is, and that always feels bad. And everything has this loot box live service mobile gacha game feel to it. Like you get new cards, the combat cards, and you need duplicates to upgrade these cards. The way you get them is by opening random loot boxes that you get on the missions. When you have multiple of one card, you can go to one place to upgrade it. For that, you need essences that you collect by doing missions and running around the hub area. To get other perks, you open other loot boxes with artifacts, and they give you things like extra item slot in battle. And then there are keys that you use to open boxes that are scattered around the hub area. And then there is another part where you send out your heroes on missions, and there you open another loot box. Everything is loot boxes. There are like 3 or 4 different type of loot boxes in one game. Yes, granted they are free. Most of the stuff in this game is free. Like there are some cosmetic stuff that actually costs money, but they really don't push it too much to your face. The part where you actually need to pay money to get some cosmetics is like super hidden. I played the game for like, I don't know, 8 to 10 hours before I finally found a part where I can buy another currency for real life money to get some cosmetic stuff for my characters. I of course didn't do that. But yeah, you see what I'm talking about. It reminds me a lot of gacha games with their endless loot boxes and crafting materials, and it is annoying. And also there is bunch of menus, and you can't do all things in one place. Like I said, you open one loot box in one place, then you go to another place to do some daily menial task, and everything is like these mobile games where you need to log in every day to do some little small thing. And that is not fun. Overall, it's not that bad. It's just, like I said, disappointing. It disappoints people who are looking for dating sims. It disappoints people who are looking for XCOM. It's just serviceable. And of course, the other bad thing is the live service thing that oozes out of pores of this game. And it feels a bit empty because of that. Because I'm willing to bet that at some part of the development, there were planned more live service things in the game. But somehow they realized that that's not probably going to work and cut out some of it. And you can feel that emptiness that would have been filled, not in a fulfilling way, but at least filled with live service stuff, because live service games by nature are not finished, and therefore this game also feels a bit empty, a bit unfinished, and it feels like one of those gacha games that you are meant to be playing every day, that you have login rewards and stuff like that, and it really feels like that, and that cheapens the final product. Like, imagine XCOM with these things. That would not be that fun or that good. But like I said, this game is not that bad. I mean, it is okay. If you can get it for a cheap, if you have a friend who can lend it to you and you are a XCOM fan, a Marvel fan, and want to try it out, then yeah, sure, why not? But I really hope that the devs will in the future work on new XCOM games without this live service stuff. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you in some time. Like, subscribe, share. Bye.